Hi, my name is Bev and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about behaviors or traits of mine that I had growing up as a kid who had undiagnosed autism. Just a disclaimer, these are just some things that now looking back were early indicators of me being autistic. None of this is exactly diagnostic criteria, so if you feel like you can relate to any of these things, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are autistic. Just like if you don't relate to any of these things, it doesn't mean that you're not autistic. For number one on the list, we have special interests. For me, this was mainly pop culture related, so TV shows, movies, singers, actors. And I think because it's a topic that's still really common and it's deemed as socially acceptable, I think it didn't really stand out. I wasn't that autistic stereotype where you're obsessed with trains or something. I think this allowed me to blend in, with other kids. I think I've always been involved within some kind of fandom from a really young age. I started running fan pages when I was like 12, and whatever it is that I'm enjoying, it takes up all of my time, and I use all my energy engaging in this thing, learning everything there is to know about it. It's like that meme where it's like when you meet someone that likes the same thing as you and you have to pretend to like it only a normal amount. And I'm saying this as I'm to my left, I literally have a shelf full of Spider-Man merch, so nothing has changed too much. I also think that part of it is that I've struggled with depression for almost my entire life. So I think that when I'm able to find something that does bring me joy, I think I really do cling on to it. I think, us autistics are very passionate about these things, and we're very grateful for the positivity and comfort that these things can provide us with. Up next, we have stimming, the official definition. Before my diagnosis, I didn't know that there was a name for these little movements that I do. One that I remember doing a ton in like elementary school, and I think I probably stopped doing it when I was like 10 or 11, was hand flapping. I feel like I was constantly flapping my hands. I remember doing it just at home, watching TV in the living room or on the playground talking with friends. I would do it more if I was really excited about something or if I was, really anxious, nervous about something. I've also always played with like the ends of my hair. I've always pulled at it. Probably caused a lot of split ends over the years. I've also always fidgeted with my hands quite a bit. I feel like I've already done it a ton just within the short span of this video. Number 3 is walking on tiptoes. So tiptoe walking seems to be a pretty common trait in mainly autistic children. Many grow out of it, but I never did. I still constantly catch myself walking on my tiptoes, and in my head I have to remind myself flat feet, stay on the ground. My kindergarten teacher would always make comments to me that I was walking on my tiptoes, and eventually she mentioned to my parents like, hey, Beverly walks on her tiptoes quite a bit, and they're just kind of like, yeah, she does. And that was that, really, which is kind of nice that they didn't see it as this major red flag or something that needed changing. To them it was just, that's what Bev does. I know that there's different theories as to why we tiptoe walk, mainly being sensory related, like, not liking the feeling of putting our full weight on our heels or trying to minimize the sound of our footsteps. I honestly don't know why I do it. To me, it's just my default way of walking, and it takes a very conscious effort for me to not do it. Number 4 is very sensitive and empathetic. I've always had a lot of feelings, and I've always cared so much about how those around me are feeling, and how they feel takes a really big toll on me, whether or not their state actually has anything to do with me. And I remember as a kid worrying about how my toys felt. I remember calling a little meeting because my family was going on vacation and I was only allowed to bring 2 of my favorite stuffed animals on the trip, remember calling this little meeting beforehand because I wanted them to know that just because I couldn't bring them didn't mean I didn't love them. And I was always just like, I always cared for things that didn't have feelings. I was the kid who would try to collect sticks out of the driveway because I didn't want them to get run over. You know, I've just never wanted anyone to get hurt. Number 5 is difficulty with eye contact. I know that there are definitely a few times that I got in trouble with my parents as a kid because I wasn't looking different authority figures in the eye, and I think it was perceived as me not caring, you know, being disrespectful, being bratty, whatever, when really, you know, trying to maintain eye contact with someone, whether they're speaking to me, I'm speaking to them, I found it to be really scary. And also, I was a really shy kid. Today, I still feel like I have an interesting relationship with eye contact. I'm extremely hyper aware of where I'm looking, how long I'm looking. And I'm not gonna lie, there's been so many times where I don't hear what the person tells me because I was too busy trying to master the perfect eye contact ratio. Next is picky eater / strong food aversions. I was always described as a picky eater growing up, and now I know that that was a combination of an eating disorder and also autistic food aversions. I didn't grow up eating a lot of kid food per se. I was always the kid that if at a restaurant I wanted to order a salad off the grown-up menu, my parents didn't really have any concerns over my like limited variety of food because it mainly was like fruits and vegetables, so since it was considered healthy, it wasn't that much of a concern to them. There are several foods that repulse me for reasons that I can't even articulate. Like, I don't know why they do. Some of them that I've been made to try, like I was made to try as a kid, and like they disgusted me then, they disgust me now. There's some that I've never tried and I never will try. Again, I don't know why they're so appalling to me, but I will not be eating certain foods. Like, I don't even want to name them off. It's weird. And I think it's interesting, again, as someone who went through treatment for an eating disorder, which I did have. It's not, you know, eating disorders and autism can coexist. But I think it's so interesting that they would just push these foods on you whether you were willing to try them or not, and that clashed quite a bit, not knowing when to jump in on a conversation. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm one to interrupt someone while they're talking, at least I don't think so. It's more of me, you know, hearing someone talk, me having something to add, but not knowing when the time is right, or then me getting suddenly too anxious when the time is right to chime in. I feel like this has unfortunately ruined many connections for me, especially when I was in new situations or in, you know, new groups of people. Like, it seems like I just have zero thoughts in my head, or like I'm just completely disinterested in whatever it is that they're talking about, which sometimes, yeah, I don't have anything to add or contribute, you know, to a conversation, but other times, there have been several times where whatever it is that they're talking about, I actually am really interested in it, or I have something really big I'd like to add, but I don't know when to chime in, and next thing I know, they're talking about another subject, and then I've missed my chance, and then the cycle repeats itself because I want to chime in about what they're talking about, and I miss it. And there are times where, you know, someone's talking about something that just isn't really my thing, or I really don't have anything to contribute, and I am just going to sit there listening to you like I'm listening to a podcast. Number 8, had to follow all rules. Part of this goes hand in hand with me just simply being a perfectionist, and back then not wanting to be seen as a bad kid. But for me, following the rules was my only choice. Like, I didn't see disobeying the rules to even be a possible option. And I'm sure this made me like kind of a buzzkill to hang out with as a kid. And I would just be so baffled when someone would go against a rule, even though it was like the smallest, like most minor little thing. And it would confuse me because, you know, there are rules that can be broken. It's kind of like no big deal. If it happens, it happens. And then there are rules where, you know, no matter what, do not break this rule. And of course I have a much better understanding of that today, but as a kid it was very confusing. It was a weird concept, like why have the rule in the first place if everyone's just going to break it? And I would get very irritated with anyone who was okay with breaking rules. Number 9 is sensory sensitivity. I feel like this is pretty frequently talked about, so it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, but I couldn't handle loud noises. Certain textures drove me crazy. I didn't like bright lights. You know, if something was too bright, like it would throw off my other senses. If something was too loud, I couldn't read it, read the words right. If something was too bright, I wasn't going to hear what you were telling me. I never liked getting my hands messy. I didn't want any glue or paint or Play-Doh on my hands. It drove me crazy. Last but not least is difficulties with speech. So I actually had a speech impediment as a toddler, preschool age. It affected the way I spoke in a few different ways. One of them being that I would kind of just not pronounce the first couple letters of a word. For example, like I remember in speech therapy, like playground, like I would say a ground, I would cut out the P and the L, and it was like that for many words. And I was in speech therapy for a couple of years, and the girls were so great at just making it seem like it was just a fun little play date. At the time, this wasn't seen as something that was related to ASD. For some reason, I had a ton of ear infections as a little kid, which is kind of gross, and I don't know why, but that's what they thought it was because of, that I couldn't hear those around me pronouncing the beginning of a word, and therefore, I couldn't copy it. Now, as I got older, my speech became very fast, very rapid. I think that's anxiety related and just not really wanting to hear my voice, so just trying to get it over with as soon as I can. And a lot of times it ends up being like jumbled speech, like I stumble over my words a ton. I'm curious to know though if anyone watching this video did these things as a child, or if there's like a major one that I missed. I'd love to know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.